like to call our Thursday, July 30th school board meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And we're going to start with our approval of personnel agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel agenda?
I'm moving to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Ms. Lipton,
Yes.
we have one more instructional position to fill,
Okay.
and I have to go to that interview,
Thank you.
so I'm going to excuse myself.
I appreciate you coming. Good luck on the interview. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our discussion with the Virginia School Board Association leadership team about our search for our superintendent. And we'll leave the floor to you to begin.
Okay, wonderful. So it's so great to see everybody. I'm Samantha Boxer, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director with the Virginia School Board Association. I'll apologize for my voice in advance. This is not how I usually sound. Getting over all the things. If you need me to repeat anything, I'm happy to do so. It sounds painful, but it's not, I promise. So if you need me to repeat anything, or I'll just elbow Bella and say, Bella, say what I just said. So, Bella, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Bella Corbo. I'm the Senior Member Engagement and Communication Specialist at the SBA.
And so between Bella, myself, and Gina Patterson, our Executive Director, we are your main search team who will be working with you throughout the superintendent search process. So our goal today is to really work through what do you all want to see as the process for your superintendent search. Bella's going to pass out a number of documents for you to look through. What we will do is we'll be looking through this manual that she passes out. There are also documentation on, I call it the loose leaf papers, if you hear me reference that, that's what this is. This is really the focus for Waynesboro. So this is a draft that we put together, very much only a draft. The conversation today will be to decide where do we go from here. What do you all want to decide as your superintendent search process? You guys have hired the SBA, you hired us to work with you through this. I like to see it as really more of a coaching relationship. We're here to coach you through the process. We are not making any decisions on your behalf. We are doing a lot of the administrative work behind the scenes, those sorts of things for you, but we're not here to say this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Unless there's some legal questions that come up, and we do have some attorneys who can answer legal questions if we need those answered as we go along the way. So does that make sense? Everybody feel comfortable with that as we go through the process? So like I said, our goal today, I could spend 5 hours talking about this book. You do not want me to do that. So our ultimate goal today is to finalize this timeline. It's a one-pager, but there's a lot of information that goes on to this. It's up to you all, the 5 of you all, to decide what do you like to see in your superintendent search process, and ultimately, what do you want to see in your next superintendent? And we're going to talk through that as we work through the pages. So, everybody good? Ready to go? All right. So I found it easiest if we just go through about the first 20 pages of the book. Gives you a lot of background information. The rest of the book is reference material. So it's there if you need it for information or extra examples of things. And Teresa, you have a copy as well, because there will be some administrative things that the board may ask you or Bonnie or whomever to do to help with that this process. And so that's why you have a copy of that book as well. And just to let you all know, the book is property of the SBA, so we do collect these back at the end of the search. You are welcome to make notes, highlight, dog ear, do whatever you need to do, especially as I'm talking through this. We're going to go over a lot of information today, so please write in here, do whatever you'd like to do. And if you have any other notes, we ask you to put that information in here. We'll tell you why in a little bit. Keep it together. I know it's a little old school, but it's nice to have some pen and paper as you're going through this process. You can keep everything in one location. So, but we will collect it at the end. If there's information you don't want us to have, you can take it out. You can shred it. You can do whatever you want to. We will hold on to it. The number of years that we need to hold on to, and I'll finish to our first page. Page 3 talks about everything that I'm talking about right now. So we'll make sure that it's discarded based on public records act and everything along this line. So, but This is all to be said, these are yours to make notes in throughout the process. We will collect those at the end of the process as we move on from there. And one thing about the book, you'll notice that it is single-sided, and it's single-sided for a reason, and it's so you can make notes in here. Once we start talking about, as we get further along the process and we start talking about applicants, you're going to be looking at the applicants on your computer screen because that's how the information is being collected. You might want to, if you're old school like me, you might want to write some notes and say, okay, Sam applied, and these are some notes I have about Sam. And then you can use the next day, Bella applied, here are the notes about Bella. So that way, that's why it's single-sided for you to use with it. So, that was one of the first questions I asked when I started. I said, can we double-side this to save some paper? And Jean said, nope, this is why. And I completely understand, and it makes perfect sense. So, page 4 is a note from Gina Patterson, our executive director. And honestly, she would be here today. We had another meeting at the office today, and I know we wanted to have this meeting as we could to really get the ball rolling. So, but you'll hear from the three of us interchangeably throughout this whole process. So there's a letter from her in here as well. Page 5 talks a little bit about the association. It just gives an overview of who we are and what we do, just to give you information. One thing that's really important, every single page of this manual is our phone number at the bottom. Please use that. Call us. Any of you can please call us if you have questions, need information about something we've said, have a question that has come to you. That's what we're here for. That's what you hired us to do. We are here with you throughout this. Call us, email us anytime, and happy to get back to you as needed. So, page 6 talks about just VSBA's experience with searches. We specialize in Virginia superintendent searches. So those are the only searches that we do our searches in Virginia. So that's a highlight that's a little different from other search organizations that you may work with. Another part that's really important, you'll hear me talk about this a little bit later, we are members of NASS, which is the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. Those are people who do our jobs effectively in other state associations. And so those other state associations also do superintendent searches. And that really those relationships come in handy when we have an out-of-state applicant. So let's say we have an applicant from North Carolina or Tennessee or New York. I can call my colleagues in any of those states and say, hey, what kind of information do you have about this person to help us with our reference check and to help us with that information? So we have a really great relationship through that affiliation that we have. And we'll talk a little bit more. That matters more when we start talking about reference checks and things of that nature. We're not to that point yet, but that is really important. You'll hear us talk a lot more about that as we're going through our references and everything along those lines. So, page 7 just gives you some information on recent searches that we've conducted. You'll see listed on this page our school divisions, the board lead, which may have been the chair, may not have been the chair at the time. It just depends on how the board sets it up, and their phone numbers. So this gives you some peer-to-peer access. So if you have questions or want to talk with a school board member who has gone through the same process that you have, that's what this information is for. As you all know, us at VSBA, we are not anything if we do not give you as much information as possible. So you may not need the information that's in this book, but we want to make sure that you have it as a reference point and you can take it. Any questions so far in the first 8 pages or so? Okay, page 9, this is where we start getting into the meat and potatoes of the work. So page 9 talks about the qualification of superintendent. So this is straight from the Code of Virginia, and this talks about how a superintendent or how a person can have a license to be a superintendent in Virginia. So there are 4 options that someone can apply for their license. So this spells out in the code how someone can have a license to be a superintendent in Virginia. A lot of times this comes into play when we have our out-of-state applicants, or maybe we have someone who's interested in a superintendent position and they do not yet have their license. So there's a question on the application that says, do you have your license or not? Yes or no. If they say no, Bella reaches out to them almost instantly and says, just to let you know, this is how you need to apply for your license. This is the information that you go through. This is the information that you need. That's all run through the Virginia Department of Education. We don't have any control over that. One thing that we will make sure, or make sure that you're aware of, is anyone who you can interview someone without a license, you cannot hire someone without a license. So if you're getting down to the nitty-gritty and someone you are interviewing, maybe you've gone a second round, and they still don't have that license, we need to figure out what's going on. Is it truly a timing issue? Is it a paperwork issue? What's happening here? And so we'll work with you to just kind of keep an eye on those pieces. Again, because someone doesn't have a license doesn't mean that they're not qualified, doesn't mean that they're not eligible at that time. It just means that they haven't filled out the paperwork necessarily. But we need to make sure, is it a paperwork issue or are they actually not qualified to be a superintendent? One thing I will say, and this has been used a couple of times over the past 10 years, is option 4. And I'd just like to make boards aware that option 4 is a possibility. It's page 12. Page 12. Option 4 basically says they have to have some minimum education requirements, some leadership requirements, including military officer or a CEO, and they must be recommended by a school board. So this is kind of the non-traditional route, if you want to say, for licensure. So this says that they don't necessarily have to have experience in education, they just have to be recommended by a school board. Like I said, I've done probably 40 or 50 of these searches in my time. I've seen this go through once or twice. It's up to the board. So all of that to be said, you all have some flexibility, but you would have to work with the Department of Education and the Board of Education to decide, do you all think that this person should be on that eligible list for superintendency? If you get to that point, we'll work with you and help kind of coach you through that. That hasn't happened in any of the searches that we've done, doesn't mean it's not happening. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
I have a question.
Yes, absolutely.
When it comes to the licensure, how does that compare to having like the EDD? Do you have to have the EDD in addition to the licensure to be?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
no. So you can have a EDD, a PhD, master's degree. The degree level matters a little bit when it comes to the type of option that they would apply for. No matter what anyone has, they need to be on the eligibility list in order to become superintendent. You all are going to be the ones that decide, do you want to require over and above of being on this eligibility list? Someone has to be on the, it's like having a driver's license. You have to have a driver's license to drive a car.
Right.
I don't care who you know, you still have to have a license, right? But if you say, I have a nicer car, I want someone to have 10 years experience driving before they can drive my car, that's something I put on, that's not something that the law has said that they have to have, if that makes sense. Kind of a random analogy, but if you all decide that you want to require someone to have a doctorate, whether it be an EDD or PhD or however you want to set that up, you can do that as a board. You would just need to list that in your position qualifications and make sure that your applicants are aware that that is a requirement for someone who's interested in looking for this position.
So regardless of degree level, the licensure is still required?
Absolutely, yes, yep. That's a great question. And the way they get the licensure, you can have a doctorate, you can have experience, you can have a lot of different things. And then that information is spelled out here, and the Board of Ed is the one that certifies that. One thing I will say, and we've had this happen over the past couple of years, the Board of Education, they used to meet monthly, they only meet 10 times a year now, which means I believe they don't meet one time in the summer and then one time over the winter time. So when someone applies, it may take 6 weeks to get on the list because the Board of Education has to approve the eligible list. So that's why one of the important things when Bella reaches out to the applicants, especially our out-of-state applicants, to say, oh, I have a license. I've been a superintendent in North Carolina. I can get my license in Virginia. That's great, but you need to fill out this paperwork. Otherwise, this board cannot hire you if they want to hire you. So just making sure that it's timing, not a timing thing, but it's also an eligibility thing. Yes, you can interview them, but you cannot hire them. So, yeah. Any other questions on the licensure?
I know you said there's a connection to property.
Yes.
The code is public for
Absolutely.
the qualifications, but do you have anything public facing to help your community of what the qualifications are?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. So you guys are actually going to come up with what are the qualifications for the Waynesboro superintendent. So that is going to be 100% public, all of that conversation. So, but you're welcome to link up the code and those types of things. Or if somebody has questions about eligibility, we usually send them to the Department of Education because they're the ones that manage that eligibility. So, but that's something that you all, we can work with if you need additional information to kind of put a packet together. Certainly happy to help provide that. So, yep. Page 13 talks about the responsibilities of the superintendent, just the major responsibilities. These were adopted by the Board of Education again. It's additional information. There's some code language in here as well. One thing I always recommend to boards, take a look at your current superintendent's job description. So there's a few documents I'm going to ask you to look at various times. Look at your current superintendent's job description. Look at your current superintendent's contract. So make sure you have access to those throughout the process. And those are public documents anyway, but make sure you have access to those because there may be times that you want to reference those documents. Okay, page 14 and 15 talk about the procedure, which is kind of what we're talking about today, but there's a really important piece that I want to highlight on page 14. And so page 14, actually the whole section. The law says that you have 180 days after your vacancy occurs to name a new superintendent. And let me back up for just 1 second. There is no law that says you have to do a superintendent search. You all as a board can choose to hire Sam. I'm not applying for this. I'm not throwing out anything. Just using myself as an example. You can choose to hire Sam tomorrow. If I am on the eligibility list, I can get a license. You can hire me tomorrow. You do not, well, I guess you can hire me on January 1st. So, because you can't have two superintendents at the same time. So, you do not have to do a search. You're not required to do a search. This board has chosen to do a superintendent search. So, all of the information that we're here talking about today is a best practices process, but that doesn't mean you have to follow it to the T either. You have flexibility and you have some pieces that we can go through. So I just wanted to pause and make sure that everybody was aware of that and that you know that we have some flexibility with some pieces. You have some flexibility of time. Your superintendent's leaving at the end of the year. I know it's already August, so we've come up with a draft timeline to get you there to name someone before your superintendent leaves. But let's talk about that. How do you want to do that? What does that process look like? Do you want to have someone on January 1st start? Are you going to have any overlap? What does that look like? That's all some flexibility that you all have that opportunity to think through and talk through as well. So, but all of that to be said, and Dr. Gansel, it is December 31st, right? I didn't just make that up. Okay, perfect. So starting January 1, you have 180 days to name your new permanent superintendent. So there is an opportunity to name an interim superintendent or an acting superintendent. So that is an option. You all have some time. I don't know that you would need to do that, but you have the flexibility to do that if you need to. You do have to have someone on the rolls that is your superintendent. So once Dr. Castle leaves, you'll have to have someone in that superintendent seat. It's whether are they an acting superintendent or are they your permanent superintendent. But your superintendent officially is leaving December 31st. You have 180 days to name a permanent superintendent. And you can also petition to the Board of Education for an additional 120 days if you need an extension for whatever reason. I've had a couple of boards use that extension within the past 5 years. A couple were because of a global pandemic, so we're going to knock on everything. That doesn't happen again. But a couple were because of some contractual issues, or they just had kind of an overlap that they wanted to get through. So, and we can help you with that process with writing a letter to the Board of Education. They're the ones that have to approve it. We can help you get to that. If we follow a timeline, you're early, you're doing okay. It's not like it's November 1st and you're all of a sudden trying to find somebody in a month. So you have some flexibility in your timeline a little bit. But I just want to make sure everybody knew kind of what was required, what wasn't required. But that 180 days is important. And the caveat to that, the board does not have to grant you an extension of 120 days. And if they decide that you have not done your due diligence on your superintendent search, they can legally name superintendent for you. You probably don't want to have that happen, but that's up to you. So just to let you know, that is kind of well, what if we don't? Then the law says that the Board of Education can place a superintendent for you. So, not to scare anybody, but that's how the law is. Okay, so page 15 just talks a lot more about what we just talked about, actually. And then page 16, so Teresa, this is something that page 16 and 17 you might want to highlight. This is a certificate of appointment that once you all have named your new superintendent, you need to go to the Department of Education, the superintendent of public instruction, so she has that information. And then there's also an oath of office, so the superintendent takes an oath, just like you all take an oath. This is just the certification of the oath of office that the superintendent will be taking. So this is something that would need to be filled out and sent into the Department of Ed once all of that information has been completed. So I'm going to pause and take a drink. Does anyone have any questions as we keep rolling?
Not at the moment. I think I'll wait for the portion on the timeline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The timeline's a big one. I could skip all this and just jump to the timeline and spend 2 hours with you, but I want to give you a little bit of background too. The timeline's a big piece, so that's where it really gets to, what do you all want to see? What kind of process do you all want to see? What kind of community involvement? I don't want to jump too far ahead because I'm almost there. So actually I'm there. Let's just jump to it. So page 20 talks about what is the process, what does the search overview process look like? I like to pause here and go to the timeline. So because what we're doing right now is task one, the initial meeting with the school board. Publicly announced, public meeting. The public is aware that you are doing a superintendent search and you hired the SBA to do the search for you, or not for you, excuse me. That was a mistake, to help coach you through the superintendent search. I apologize. So in this packet, there is a news release, and this is a sample news release to announce today, tomorrow, anytime, to let your community know, what does this process look like? Is this process, how is the community involved in this process? What is our kind of our sample timeline? What are we looking at here, and what's coming up in the months ahead? Let's just say that. So this is a draft. It says draft all over it. It's a starting point for you all, so you can take a look. So you don't have to create something from scratch. This does not mean you have to use this. This is just something that you have access to. Teresa also does have a Word version of this, so there are any edits that can be made to this based on what we talked about today as well. So, all right, let's jump into this timeline. So July 30th, we have covered that. That is today. That is our first meeting. And I can talk for more time on this, but has the board thought about or discussed community involvement in this process? As you all can see a lot of head nods.
Yes.
So, yes, what are we thinking?
We definitely are wanting to do a community survey.
Okay, great.
And just have as much participation in the process as possible with what does the community, or what attributes is the community looking for, and just really understanding what the future for Waynesboro Public Schools looks like. So
Absolutely. Wonderful. So there is a draft survey in your packet as well. One thing, we did go ahead and make this a bilingual survey, just because, we know your student population as well and want to make sure that it's accessible. So this survey does have English and Spanish listed here. We can make changes as need to, or if you all have a translator that you like to use, or if anything along those lines, happy to do that as well. But this is a sample again. You all do not have to use this, but I encourage you to take a look at this survey, again, as a starting point to gather that community input. And the survey is based on what kind of qualifications, Amber, just like you said, what kind of qualifications does the community want to see in the next superintendent? And so you might say, well, I want someone who is all of these things. Well, they have to rank order and say, okay, what are my 1, 2, and 3? Because yeah, I want somebody to be all of these things too. It's going to be hard to find somebody that is every single box checked. One thing that I really want to point out on this survey is question 1. It asks the respondent to determine what category they are as they're responding to the survey. This is the one we get the most questions about. You'll notice the answers are parent, teacher, administrator, employee, social organization member, student, civic org, a bunch of other options. You can only choose one. I might be a parent and a civic organization member and Chamber of Commerce member, but I have to pick which one am I answering this wholly. So that's a question that we get, and it's done on purpose, to be honest with you, because when we send you these survey results, if you decide to use this type of survey, what we will do is send you the results that are completely compiled with let's say you get 100 responses, you'll get all 100 responses together. Let's say you had 50 parents answer, you'll see how the parents answer, you'll see how the teachers answer, you'll see how the students answer. And I hope you get students to respond, because it's great to have student input on this information. How did our PTO respond? You'll see that to see, are the parents saying something different from the PTO, or similar, different from the teachers, different from the civic orgs. So that way you can just get kind of an idea of how that works out. So there are some open-ended questions at the end of the survey. And that's really where the community has the opportunity to tell you, what's the first thing that the superintendent should do moving forward? What's a talent or skill that they should have to do the job well? That's a lot of times that your community is going to put in some information to help make sure that their thoughts are known on what they'd like to see in the next superintendent. So,
How editable-
yes.
So I have a question
Yes.
about, the categories.
Mhm.
So when you're segmenting the groups,
Mhm.
if, for example, if I see, or I'm not seeing enough families, like the students and the groups we're actively serving right now,
Mhm.
can we ask to have them more targeted or maybe extended so that we can make sure we're getting enough of their voices?
Sure, so it's a great question. So you all will be the ones that send the survey out. We're behind the scenes, making sure the information is there for you. You all are the ones sending it out. We send you periodic updates on how many people have filled out the survey. We've never been asked to send it based on the question one, but we can certainly do that. So then you all as a group can decide, we only have 2 students that have submitted, can we make sure that we have our students? So that is certainly something that the board can take ownership of. And we're happy to provide you the behind the scenes information to make sure you have that. So, absolutely, yep.
So, kind of going off of like touching partially what Diane was talking about, is to what extent is it editable on our behalf, or do we propose?
All it's in. So you
Okay.
can edit anything and everything in this survey. So some boards will choose to kind of sleep on it and take some time to look through things tonight or whenever. You all just let us know when it's ready. And we can actually, Bella's already got it pulled up because that's how great she is. So if you know you have edits to it, you can make edits today. Or you all can send your edits to Amber or whomever, and then she can send those to us. So everything is completely editable.
Because I know something that I know is important to me, and I think the rest of the board as well, is based off of the demographic of students that we serve,
Mm-hmm.
and especially being a division that's a minority majority.
Mhm.
I would like the community to also weigh in to see how much representation in the physical person matters to them as well. I think that's important, that they feel represented on all levels.
And I'd say that's up to you all. You all just let us know how you would like to see that in the survey.
That needs to be a board decision.
Yes, yeah. The 5 of you guys would make that decision.
I know that with a lot of our open houses and things like that, if we're gonna do any editing, I think today would be the best time to do that because we have Sunday, I don't know what the turnaround would be for a survey if we finalize that today to have for Sunday because we have our.
Oh, to do it the back to school then. To have the
Yes,
survey
because we
available.
have a lot of community members that are gonna be present at that in our open houses. So I feel like getting that done as soon as possible would be the best route for maximum participation.
So if you all want to, send all of maybe the suggested edits to Amber tonight, and then make sure that those are all agreeable with the entire board, and then send those to me tomorrow morning, I can make the edits to the survey tomorrow, and I can give it to you by tomorrow afternoon, as well as the, included hard copy as a PDF, so that way you guys, you guys can also do printouts, so those who don't know, everyone printout, we're taking an online survey, so, just any printout copies, just, make sure that Teresa or Rhonda, scan and we'll send those to us, and I'll be the one that inputs them, just that way you guys don't, there's no question about changing answers.
That's good. So I do have a follow-up question. My only concern with making any changes to the language, so I don't want anything that might lead a person into a specific answer. Will you be able to look at the language and make sure it aligns with just like best practices for surveys?
We can certainly look. I will say usually if it's the board that has, if the board has sent us the suggestion, then typically we make that edit. So I would say if you all could look at it amongst yourselves first and then let us know what you like, because I don't want to substitute my judgment for yours. Because if it's something that the board truly wants, then it needs to be in there. So that makes sense. So, but if you all have questions about it, then we can certainly talk through talk through that.
It's not so much whether it should be included,
Yeah.
it's just the actual language.
The
so
language
we're not
of the
trying
question.
to get a specific
Sure,
answer
sure,
or not, that's all I'm looking for.
And one thing I will say, the survey, let's back up for a second again. So the survey, the purpose of the survey is to gather what kind of qualifications does a community think that should be seen in your next superintendent. So we also haven't talked yet about a public hearing. Have you guys talked about doing a public hearing where the public can come at a meeting and say, speak to you, this is what I think should be seen in the next superintendent? Have you guys talked about that at all?
I'm talking about a version of the town hall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a public gathering, so that's another option. So any way that you all can gather community input in a multitude of ways. The purpose of that community input is to come up with your qualifications. And this is a draft. This is very much a draft, just so you have a placeholder for it. It's to come up with this qualification, the announcement, so applicants know what you all are looking for in your superintendent search. So you'll have the community survey, you'll have a public hearing if you decide to do that. You're going to have one-on-one conversations with people that you've probably already been having when people say, hey, this is what I think you should see, this is what I think should happen. You'll also have your own opinions when you come. You've been elected for a reason. You have your own thoughts and processes. All of that data is coming together to come up with this qualification, with the qualifications for this position. So you have all of those pieces. So your position announcement is not solely based on one data point. It's based on a lot of different data points. So, and that's not to say that one matters more than the other because it doesn't. It's just a way for you to gather the information to help inform you on what should your announcement say for your superintendent. So does that make sense? Kind of why we're getting behind this? So, so this survey is set up similarly to the position announcement. So what kind of leadership qualifications, what kind of, and this gets to your question that you had earlier, Nigel, about do they have a doctorate or not? Are they going to be required to live in the city or not? Those are things that you all need to talk about. I hope they could be questions. There are already questions on the survey. If you choose to keep them there, those are questions that are either you have a doctorate or you don't, right? You will be required to live in the city or you won't. So those are, you've been a principal or you haven't. Those are checkbox things, but they're important pieces, for you all to decide and to make sure that your applicants are aware what kind of qualifications. Because if I've done all these great things, but I've never been a principal, sorry guys. I've done all these great things, but I've never been a principal, and you guys have required principal, maybe I'm not the best candidate, because I've never been a principal. That's up to you all to decide. Excuse me. Someone else, give me another question.
No, you're good.
Well, the question, one of the additional question, and I guess it's up to us as a board to decide, is like how long do we want the survey to stay open? Because I think I was looking at it looks to be about 2 weeks. If we're going to be receiving updates somewhat in a frequent status, it might, if it is a board decision, to leave it open longer.
So that's what we're talking about today. Absolutely. Yep.
I
So-
feel, yeah, I feel like with the public hearing, our next board meeting is on the 11th. So I feel like, to me, I feel like that'd be a good time to do that prior to the normal business meeting. Like,
I'm just saying doing it separate is not
Why
than a
separate?
regular meeting so that there's plenty of time and people don't feel rushed that we're giving to them. That's not really what needs to be taken to people can see what matter and then I'm not going to take.
So we open the survey, we can then talk to the staff and then schedule a public hearing for maybe the
They're proposing the 13th, which is the same, which is a Thursday.
That's just a whole date.
Yeah.
So it's totally up to you guys. One thing that's also an important piece, it's best and it's suggested that all 5 of you are as present as you possibly can be through this entire process. So this is an important job. This is one of the most important things that a school board does is hire a superintendent. So having all 5 of you present for as many things as possible is really, really important because your opinion matters, your thought matters, and the area of the community that you're representing matters too. So there will be a lot of meetings. You know, we have this meeting today, for example, a meeting that wasn't on your normal schedule, right? If you do a public hearing, that's really important that everybody's able to be there. If you do, or when you do, meet to establish your qualifications, that'll also be done at another public meeting. You really need to be there, because that's where the rubber meets the road on, do we want to have doctor, I stick with doctorate because it's just an easy one. If you have doctorate, do not. You all decide that, based on the other information, but you decide that. We're getting through the process, interviews. This is gonna take a lot of time. Let me just be honest, there's a lot of time devoted to this. I know you can do it. I know you all are super busy people, but it's really important to do. So as we're going through this timeline, let's make sure if you've got a time that you know you're not available, let's cross that date off and find a date that all 5 of you are available. That's what we're here to do. So just because we have it on the 13th, it does not have to be on the 13th. It needs to be on whenever the 5 of you guys are available.
Okay, because I'm looking at, like, that's the first week of school, so I'm thinking like the 20th, which would be or like the 18th. And then that pushes the survey a little bit, and then you can have the survey there for the public hearing, and then it closes after that as well. I don't know if any of you have your calendars available to kind of look.
I guess the immediate thought that I had is that perhaps we can have a question to the survey about interest in the public hearing and what time they're available by concern with my constituents, because that's not a good time for them.
Especially if you're doing shit.
What do you think is like better time?
I'm not entirely sure, but I just think it stands to be pretty difficult.
What if we were to,
I was just gonna say, yeah, it is a shit work thing.
So also, I'm assuming you'd be doing it at the high school, and that should be plenty of space to run and check that schedule.
what does a weekend look like? Like a Saturday, that way it allows people that they are, if they're listening with shift work or have that schedule, there might be windows of opportunity that overlap that they could try to drop in to weigh in.
Well, that's what I'm asking, if we can put on the survey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, that would be
Some
fine.
shift work is Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're talking a 2 or 3 week period, if the survey, we want the survey still open for the public hearing so that people can continue having access to that we break down and takes a whole bunch of QR codes to it. If we're using the survey to garner and to have the public hearing, how long would that, when would you stop to say this is enough responses to get it?
Because I feel like if we're doing that to plan, then I feel like you'd have to shorten the survey to maybe the week of the school so that we can get everybody's schedules and get the data together for that.
I feel like we could split the difference, like we could say, if you respond by this date, then we'll use that in the planning, but then leave the survey open for those who respond afterwards. So they still have an opportunity to weigh in, even if they can't attend the public hearing.
Yeah.
Could you do a separate survey
That's
for
what
the
I was
public
gonna
hearing?
ask.
Should we
date?
segment it?
Yeah, or just
Okay.
do a totally separate, like a Google survey or something that just says, when would be the best date for you to do that? Boom, boom, boom. You guys can own that, so then you can see what the data is, what it looks like, and make adjustments as you
But
go.
we can always pick a few dates and times. So we have like 5 dates and times, and then we'll look and see which one's the most
It
maybe.
doesn't have to be a Calendly thing.
Yeah.
Like, we'll give some options.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
And you guys can also do more than one public hearing. You don't have to
Okay.
just do one. You could do 5. You could do one in each ward if you really wanted to. So
That's good.
totally up to you all how you'd like to do that. So.
Okay, well, that's
Another
super.
point, if we do it at the high school, meaning that we had meetings live or accessible online for people to watch at the high school. When we're there, and so we enjoy that. They run some in for a public hearing.
It would be run just,
We could do that at the elementary school.
and I would say, and the most of you that can be at each public hearing, if you're gonna be 5, that's gonna be hard to
Yeah.
be. But it's the most of you who can be at those, because you wanna make sure that everyone is hearing the same thing.
We could just set up one now and then through that process add a few more on those dates and times too, just so we have something on the books that people can plan for.
I will say from past experience, you would be surprised at the number of people who fill out the survey, because how can I say this? You have an active community. People are gonna be paying attention. They're already paying attention to what's going on, which is wonderful and great. People will fill out the survey, and you're gonna get a lot of great information from this survey. The public hearing gives people the opportunity to talk to you, because sometimes me talking to you is a little different than me filling out. But maybe I don't want to talk to you because I don't like to get up in front of people to talk. I'm going to have this survey to fill out too. So you're covering your bases there. And if I don't want to do any of those things, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you and tell you all of my thoughts anyway. So you're going to be gathering public input throughout this entire process, formally, informally, all of the different ways as well. So, which I think is great. I think it's great to have the public input. Not that my opinion matters, but it's great to have that public participation in this process. Because it's a big process.
Side note, because we talked about, we have an opportunity to be more intentional about how we communicate with the division. I think, so we'll be in charge of our communication plan, how we
Correct.
communicate to the community. So making sure our elementary, our principals, the ones that are sending out back to school information and the recruiting and all that stuff, just making sure that it usually takes people to see things about 8 times before it's sent in. So I think we need to have a communication plan to make sure that this is a people in every way, multiple times, so that they are accessible, not assuming it's going to be on the website. It's going to be for reading the article, we need to make sure.
Our recommendations a lot of times are use social media, use your own, social media. If you guys have school board pages, push out the information. Also, you guys have like a text alert system for holidays and weather and things like that.
Right.
Use that. So that way that covers a broad piece. You have your civic organizations that you have contact information for. You have the Chamber of Commerce. You have a lot of other resources that you can use to get the information out for the survey. You cast that wide net, and I think the most you can include in that announcement, if you will, you have the survey, but hey, here's a public hearing, and hey, here's more information about this. That way it keeps your community involved and abreast of the whole process. A lot of boards not a lot, but some boards will create a website, like a page on your website, just dedicated to the superintendent search process, so the community can go there to see where you are in the process. So they'll have the timeline, they'll have all this information, but sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. Let's put it all on one website that people can go to for updates. And if you guys make updates to it as you go, hey, we're going to add a second public hearing, you can post it there and then also use the other pieces. And as Bella mentioned, I want to make sure that it was understood. We will also send you a PDF version of this survey whenever you've decided what questions you want on it, because then you can put it in the library. You can put it at the office of the schools, because people might say, I don't want to fill it out on your internet, or my internet is spotty, or I don't trust it, whatever. They have a version that they can fill out, hard copy, they can put it in an envelope, or they can bring it to central office. Our recommendation is typically, if I find it at the library might collect it, it's right across the street, so that's easier, but let's say you put it out somewhere that's a little farther away, and say, bring it back to the school board office, Teresa collects it, and then she doesn't even look at the surveys, she can scan those, or I can meet up with her and get the copy of the surveys, and then we will put the information into SurveyMonkey. So you all are not doing that. She's not doing that. No one on your staff has access to see what anyone has written, because people will write information as they should. We will see that. We'll make sure it gets into the survey results. So then when we send you those compiled results, then you'll have the hard copy surveys. You'll have the online surveys. You'll have all that together. So that's kind of what that process looks like from the administrative side.
I like that. Would you all feel comfortable with getting one public hearing on the books today, adding a separate survey to see multiple other days that the community would like and location? I think the elementary schools are a great idea. And then just planning with the principals to make sure it's an appropriate day for their school too. Okay. So take a look and see, like the August 13th, August 18th. Any of those dates, we'll start there.
I think we should probably push it to like the 18th at the
Tuesday,
minimum, just to get that.
Okay, people know now, then some people's work schedule.
Yeah.
The 18th is
For the public hearing, the 18th.
yeah,
For the first public.
First
hearing.
public
Yeah,
hearing.
I mean, next week's already long.
and
That
then
paper.
Right.
Yes.
And we're asking because we will also update this timeline and send you all a copy of it so you have it. And you can edit it and use it as you need to. So, but that also helps us because people may call us and say, hey, when was this? And then we can reference it from there.
And I guess we just also have to check when Dr. Kathleen might give you a question for you just to see if there's no back to school dates or meetings happening the 18th after.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
I have something else that we can do.
Is that date okay, Doug?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and write it down. Thank you.
Do we have a time?
I think 6 o'clock. Is that okay with you all?
Yeah.
Okay.
When they do the survey, I know it's anonymous, but can they do it multiple times? Like, can we do it 25 times?
So it's, you can do it one per IP address. So if I have a work computer, if I have a home computer, if I have a phone, if I really want to do the survey, I'm going to figure out how to do it that many times, to be honest with you. I've done this a lot. I've not had that be a problem, because a lot of times you will see within the short answer questions, if it's the same question, it's the same questions. So it is set up, so it's run through Survey Monkey, which is a survey platform, so it's one per IP address.
Thank you.
Yep, great question.
I don't, my household would have 5 different.
And so hopefully you have 5 different devices that you can use on there as well.
For us to consider, since there's so many moving pieces that we need, and again, we talk in our own evaluations for ourselves that communication, intentionality around communication is an opportunity for us. I think one of us should be the point person to make sure the communication is happening and then keep an eye and say, oh, did you see that come out of William Perry, or just what we're saying, and so that staff that control those, or staff that manage those pieces, for the accountability on our side, to make sure that what we're saying, there needs to be a communication as well. We have to have a communication, thanks for
That's all this goes.
on the board, and so not to volunteer anyone, but I do think while you're leading the whole process, we need to be a team that's pulling some of these pieces for these, I think that someone should be leading communication and making sure we stay on target for what we're saying.
I think she did volunteer.
I'm good with it, thank you.
If it's someone's expertise and career, they, managing your lane is a good thing.
I like it.
I'm good with it.
Cool.
I'm
Alright.
more than willing to help in that endeavor.
Perfect. Awesome.
So one thing that we'll need to know and update, and this will shift our timeline back a little bit, which is okay. We talked about how you have some flexibility with this. What kind of deadlines do you want to see for the survey? So if it's not going to go out today or tomorrow, it might go out on Monday or Sunday, I think we said for the batch.
Yes.
So at least a 2-week window. If you have it out for 4 weeks, people forget to fill it out. Let's just be honest. They see, oh, I don't have to fill it out to the end of August. I'll fill it out later, and then all of a sudden the deadline has passed. So that's why we try to keep that kind of 14, I would say no more than 20 days, just in case. But usually, the survey deadline stays open through at least the public hearings, because I think, as Deborah said, people will come to the public hearing like, oh, I forgot I could also fill this out on the survey. So then you can have, some boards will even have a computer sitting there with survey, so people can fill that out. And if that happens, let me know, because then we can shift some things with IP address qualifications. But anyway, so something to think about. But let's think about that. Now that we're here, when do you want your deadlines for surveys to be? So if we're not going to do our first public hearing until the 18th, when should our deadline for surveys be? Around then?
I feel like that'd still be around 5 days, so.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of opportunities within Sunday to that date with the schools opening and access to the information. I think around that date,
Maybe the 21st, because if that's going to be our first public meeting,
that works.
it can catch stragglers that might have been absent from the communication channels earlier.
That works. 21st?
Yeah.
Friday, 21st.
Goal for it to go live and do something.
That's my goal, because then we can have at the, either we can have our own table for it, or there's a space in that room for the survey to be printed with a QR code and then printed copies.
Well, the address won't change, you're just editing the survey, so we can definitely do that.
Exactly, yep.
And the address is actually already in the sample news release. So if you send the sample news release before you're ready to send out the survey, I would just include the link.
Just let us know.
When you include it and say, here's the link, and I'll be live.
We can, and we can turn it on in certain days. You could do that. You might, I will say, people are gonna read, and they're gonna click on it and see that it's not available, and then they're gonna get frustrated and probably not come back to it, so.
Definitely commit to submitting any changes that you need by tonight, and then send them release tomorrow afternoon. I think that would.
I think that's right. We'll do that.
It's clean, it's all right there in one place, boom, boom, but that works. Now, if you guys wanna do a second survey about a second public hearing, I would use that in a, whatever method you want to collect that data from.
Well, I like to just gauge, like,
Yeah.
since we're gonna do it separately, find out what the interest is and what are the best times, and then we can decide how to make additional ones, and also where.
Right.
That will.
Are you creating that survey, or are we creating that survey?
I would say, I think that's something you guys can do, unless you need our support, I think that's something that's owned by you all, because then it takes out the middleman.
Then do we need to make sure that we're setting it up through your survey monkey so that you can do that? Okay, all right.
For justice, if somebody wants a second public hearing, yeah.
Okay, no.
So, in the fear of oversaturation, what does that also look like? Because I mean, of course, you want it to be transparent and you want the community to be involved, but you don't want to do it to the point where it's almost annoying. And you're like, hey, fill this out, fill this
Yeah,
out, fill
you
this out.
just do this.
Yeah. So what's
I
a
mean,
good balance in approaching that?
my opinion, yes, would be, I don't know if oversaturation is a thing with something as important as this. And if somebody says, oh, I've already filled out that survey, awesome. And then you can take some time to just talk about what's going on. Back to school started, or we had our bash. You can use it as another time for you to connect with a community member too. So I think, because someone's always going to say, I didn't know about that,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know that you can necessarily oversaturate, but if you have someone that says, yes, I know, use that and say, yeah, have you heard about all these great things, or really excited about this process, or this, that, and the other, and use that to really share some wonderful things that are going on. So, that would be my recommendation. One thing I will say, and I'm just going to say this, so you're aware. So let's say, or just to say it. So let's say you do the survey and you leave the question on if someone should have a doctorate. And let's say 95% of your community says an earned doctorate is required. You all should take a strong look at that when you're coming up with your qualifications. So it's a should, you don't have to. But if you're asking the community for their input and the overwhelming majority of the community says X, then that's something I think you all should take into consideration. Again, it's up to the 5 of you to determine what goes on this sheet. But with a caveat, if 95% of everyone is saying something, then you need to take a hard look at that. So that would be, Nigel, you asked kind of what are some pieces that might come up with community involvement or those kind of pieces. That's something I would just make sure that you're conscious and cognizant of as you go through the process. Again, it's up to the 5 of you to decide what goes on here. We put on whatever you want to put on. Where you get your data is up to you. But if the overwhelming survey says X, Y, and Z, take a strong look at that, or have a strong conversation about that. And that's that takes us to our next step. You all will come back together as a full board and come up with this document. So this document that I'm holding up is the announcement of the superintendent search, but it's the qualification document. So this is what is used to advertise for prospective employees or prospective applicants who are interested in becoming your next superintendent. So if I'm out there on the internet deciding if I want to become a superintendent, which I don't, just throwing that out there, then I will see, okay, what's going on in Waynesboro? What's Waynesboro's background? So you'll see that there's information on your demographics, on your school division. All of this information was provided to us by your staff, so thank you for that. This can change if you want to lead with a different sentence, if you want to use a different, order of information. This is completely up to you. In the book, there are samples. So starting on page 28 has samples of position announcements. I would encourage you to thumb through these because every school division does it a little different. The one you have in front of you was clearly was really just a starting point to get something on paper so you could start thinking about and start working through things. So take a look, page 28 through about page 40 gives you just some samples. Again, you don't have to use any of these, it's just somewhere to give you some information. But you all will have a public meeting to talk through what kind of qualifications you want to see. That's when you're going to say, all right, 50% of our survey said this. You know, a lot of people at the public hearing said this. I personally think that we should do this. This is the best practice. You know, that's when you guys are really going to come together and have a really good conversation around what kinds of qualities you'd like to see in your next people.
So ideally, this would be released the 19th.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it would be after, how long does it take for you to compile that data and analyze it?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
so I think I jumped a little too far. So if, let's say our deadline for surveys is the 21st, right? That's what I wrote down. So it takes us about a day. And what's the 21st? Friday. So Monday morning is when we'll give you those survey results.
Okay.
Unless we want to do it, I mean, you could do the survey to end of Sunday if you wanted to, because we won't compile it so much, you know, unless you have a reason why you need to. We'll give you those survey results. You need some time to digest those survey results, and then you will also need time to meet and then go over this information. So let's pause for a second and talk about the date that you guys are going to come back together to establish those qualifications. So that's done in a public session. It can be done in a room like this, and that's when you're going to have the survey data. You're going to have your public hearings will be complete at that point. You're going to have all your public input, and you're going to be ready to start writing down what kind of qualities you want to see in your next superintendent. So calendar-wise, we need to push a little further than what's on the timeline, which is fine. If our survey ends on the 21st, you get the results on the 24th. Is everyone available the week of the 24th? Not on the 24th, I would say, but 25th, 26th, 27th to meet in a public meeting?
27th. Yeah, that gives us enough days to kind of discuss.
Yeah, I don't have anything. So that's my knowledge.
Eric, are you available?
I can't use that as well.
It's up to you guys.
We use it for coffee.
Okay. So this is
August.
established qualification.
And that's something we do not typically come back for that meeting, so that's something you guys would do. We'll provide you with the resources that you need, and give you the documentation and, answer any questions that you might have, but, that's something that you all would discuss.
I do want to take a step back though. You said by the time we have the meeting for the qualifications, all of the public hearings need to be complete.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
How does that be multiple public hearings?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
And that could work.
For the qualifications meeting, the meeting here, and it will include just a thought. But I think the community is really interested in the process, so you might have more people than the city, because it was like, we did this meeting at this time because it was informational for us, not something that was communication or, so I do think we need to consider maybe, yeah, if we can have locations so that if more people in the church, they can come at the appropriate time, and it's actually set into the information.
Maybe meetings surrounding the superintendent's search to resolve the high school. To eliminate that possibility and the,
Can you check on the page? Insurance. The 27th at 6. Thank you.
So then what you would do is at that meeting, what I have found works well is if Teresa or someone has this document or whatever document you've decided up on the screen. So you guys can wordsmith, you can go through, is this required, is this preferred, what does this look like? And then that way, when you're done with that meeting, everybody feels good. It's really more of a work session, it's a public meeting, but you're working on this document, that's the purpose of that. So then this document will be finalized and sent to us, and this is what we use to advertise the position. So I would make sure that you have some staff support and some IT support as well, because it seems to work best if the edits can be made live while you all are talking through it, and everybody can look and say, yes, this is what we want to see as we go forward. And then we will get whatever you all send to us, we will send out. Now, if we get in there and see a glaring typo, or if we have a question, or if it's something that's contradictory that we were questioning about, most of our communication goes to the chair, just so we have one kind of main point of contact, but we're happy to contact whomever you guys ask us to contact. So just let us know. So then we'll just to make sure, is this how you wanted this to say? Like one school division, it was a typo. They had principal was preferred, and then three numbers down they said principal was required. I said, okay, which one is it, you guys? And so they had just forgotten to delete one of them. And so we'll check that. So we'll do a little bit of check on that for you as well. So
What's the turnaround time for our notes to be sent back to you for the send out?
There was one day on here.
yes, that's all. So because you guys will send it to us in a basic final form, we can get it out the next day.
Oh,
Okay.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So it'll go out, most likely the
28th, if you send it to us
on the 27th.
on the 27th.
Okay.
If you send it to us on the 28th, then it might not go out until, which it might be cleaner anyway to send it out on the 31st, which is a Monday. And then it can hit inboxes Monday morning and not Friday evening. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
So we could send it to you, but then you might release it on the 31st.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So let's put on a timeline, August 28th is when you'll provide the established qualifications to us. And that gives a little wiggle room just in case there are, some things that need to be edited, or maybe you guys didn't finalize, who knows? It gives us a little wiggle room. So then you would receive applications from August 31st, and then we need to extend this. We usually recommend a 30-day window for applications to be open. And the reason for that is because your applicants first need to look and see if they're interested in applying for the job. They might have transcripts that they need to request. They might need to fill out the DBOE form to get on the licensing piece. Again, you can interview, but you can't hire. There's a lot of pieces, so we recommend a 30-day. So that would push us to the end of September for receiving applications.
Okay.
Can I take us back to the meeting for the 27th? Because we'll get the survey results from you guys that show how the public responded.
Correct.
You guys don't publish those to the,
We do not. We send
but
those to you.
we can make those available. So I think it's important that as we talk through it, we have some printed versions or QR code or something to go through it, so that the public can see what the response was in totality and what it's guiding us as we have a discussion.
Yeah.
I think those are going.
On this website.
So if you have a page that's dedicated to it, then
Well, because it could also be beneficial to have like a PowerPoint presentation as we're walking through the results, because as we're doing the qualifications, those edits will be made from the results of the survey. So it could be beneficial just to have the results come through as we make them be added.
So we can make a PowerPoint to have at our qualifications meeting too. At that work session, we can have it available.
maybe. Because if we're actively working on the qualifications during that session, we're not gonna be able to have a PowerPoint. I mean, it's not one that actually covers the results until afterwards. But we could develop one here on site.
This is for the survey results that we'll have before the meeting.
Yeah.
They'll probably have to change it.
I
I should use the example of 95% say they want a doctorate, like, I feel like the community.
Those
should know
results.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
And when we say that we will make sure pass without an assignment person, who are we, who's going to be the responsible person to make sure that we have those results available? That goes back to you in the communication.
Yeah, I think so.
Just make sure we're on the same page.
And I can make sure that like you get that, but I can filter through it to make sure that it's received.
You're so excited.
I can be first, and because if I'm giving it to her for the communication purposes, I would naturally be the person to see it first. And then I
So everyone will see, I know you're talking about the PowerPoint, but just to clarify, everyone will, all 5 of you will receive the survey results at the same time, and we're gonna send it to you in a PDF.
can-
So however you wanna do with whatever you'd like to do with that, you're welcome to do
There's
that.
not much on necessary, but yeah, the initial results, we can put that in a deck, and then what the results are at the end of our meeting, we can update it later.
I haven't used PowerPoint in a while, but I can come them later.
I use it all the time.
Yeah, single sign.
Use Google Slides to make it easier.
That's there.
Okay, so let's look at our receipt applications, and I'll tell you kind of what that means as we go through it. So if we open on the 31st, that's 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, we could end on the 25th, or the 27th, which is a Sunday, of September. That would give us a full 4 weeks.
Okay.
What are we thinking?
What time
I
is
feel
that?
like that.
And
September 27th, which would be, so it open on a Monday and then close on a Sunday, 4 weeks later.
You said the 4-week period, what? You said
That's the
recommend
recommended
best
period,
practice.
correct, yeah.
they're receiving the application.
So, yeah, so that means it'll be open for people to apply for.
Right, starting August 30th,
30,
or 31st.
yes. September 27th, Sunday evening.
Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you, let's talk a little bit about what happens with that, and I'm gonna bring us back to the book for a second. So, let's see, on page 44. So we have a program that we use called Rebellis, and it is a program that was created by a state association, school board association, for the sole purpose of getting superintendent applications. So, in my mind, it is very user friendly from a school board standpoint and also from an applicant standpoint. So whatever information you all give us on your announcement, we will upload. I'm saying we, Bella will upload into Revelis, or Revelis. We have an argument on which one we're supposed to say. The people who created it say one and we say another. So anyway, so the application, the application questions you see are here in the book. These are ones, you do have some flexibility in updating these questions if you would like to update, if the board would like to change any of these questions or make updates or ask any additional questions to that. So I'd encourage you to take a look. I will say that the questions that are answered with the application that is, as is, give you a lot of good information. But I have seen some boards add an additional question, or some boards will say, please submit a 200-word writing sample on X, Y, and Z. That's up to you all. So if that is something you guys would like to ask your applicants to do, just let us know so we can make sure that it's in the application prior to August 31st. So that's something just to think about. But you'll see in here, starting page 44, is what the application will look like. Obviously, it'll be designed a little better because it's in the computer system, but these are the questions. Applicants will be asked to upload a cover letter, references. They can update reference letters. They don't have to. Cover letters, I mentioned that, resume. One thing that's really important, well, actually, we haven't even talked about that yet, but so the applications will go out. I'm going to come back to what the references are and all of those pieces when we talk about our second meeting, but the application will be advertised through Education Week, which is where we get a lot of our national search, a lot of our other state associations, or excuse me, a lot of out-of-state applicants. We also will advertise on other state association websites. We advertise it on our own DSBA website. We advertise it with the Superintendent's Association. We also have an email list. Anyone in-state, out-of-state, out-of-country even, have asked us, they say, I am interested in becoming a superintendent in Virginia. Can you please add me to your email list? So we have an email list of about 400 people that receive all of the alerts for all of our superintendent vacancies that we have in the state. So it's really casting a wide net. I have some boards that will ask me, say, well, we don't want an out-of-state search. We only want an in-state search. Well, the internet exists, so that's really hard to say that. Now you can require something. You can require Virginia experience in your qualifications. If you truly want someone who has worked in Virginia and who has that experience, that is a qualification that you can choose to use. That'll narrow your pool a little. That's not necessarily bad. So, so think about, think about those pieces. But there will be a wide net pass for these superintendent, aspiring superintendents, if you will. And we also encourage you all to share that link. So the link, we house the link through the Revelous software, and actually that link is already in your draft. It's a share announcement because they just they go and they log into the Revelous software, and then that's where they see Waynesboro City has a vacancy. I can click on that and then I can apply. Yes.
And I'm sorry if I just missed it, but I don't see any type of alternative method if someone needs accommodation.
We've not been asked that question before, but what I can do is connect to the Ohio School Boards Association, and we'll work with that. So we will make sure that if someone needs accommodations for applying, they'll have that. So yeah, we've got a direct line into the association so they can help us from software standpoint and whatever they do. So yep, absolutely. So one important piece. So that I keep saying that, and then I give you 10 other things. But so you're receiving the applications, you get the information. What happens then, right? So then now, when do you all get to see the information? So on September 28th, you all will have access to receive or to view the applications. So let's say you get 20 applications. I'm just picking a random number. You get 20 applications, you will see all 20 of those applications in this software page. I'm saying the software, you don't have to download anything. It's a website. So page 47 talks about you all, and you as the 5 of you school board members will have access to this page. This is when you're seeing the specific names of people who are applying, what is their, where they're currently working, who are their references, all of those pieces. So you all will receive that information. We do not filter anything. If somebody has a typo in there, you're going to see it. If somebody uploads the wrong cover letter, you will see it. So we will help people if they have issues with the software, if they can't upload things, if they upload it to the wrong place, we'll help them with it. If they upload the wrong letter and don't ask us about it, that's on them. That's on their professionalism. So you all will see all of that information. So what we do ask that you do before our second meeting, which we'll talk about, we still need to set that date for. We ask that all 5 of you have reviewed all of the applications that have come in and be familiar with them. You don't have to have them memorized. Be familiar with them. That's where you can take some notes in this book. Say, Sam applied, she talks a lot, whatever. You can have your notes in here and have that information available. So, because when we come back to you, we will have information on all. I'm going to stick with 20, and then that's just a made-up number. That doesn't mean anything. We're going to have information on all 20 applicants that have come in. Let's say you list doctorate as preferred. Again, I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying our doctorate is required. And let's say you have 3 people on your list who do not have a doctorate. We're going to flag them. We're going to still gather information about them, but we're going to flag them and say, these 3 people do not meet your minimum qualifications. Or you ask for experience at a principal, I'm just going to make it funny, principalship at a high school. You want your next superintendent to have been a principal at a high school. What if you have someone who's only been an assistant principal? We're going to flag that because that's not a principal. That's not going to necessarily disqualify them. We're still going to have information about them, but we're going to make sure that you know that they do not meet your minimum qualifications as you have this. So we will come back to you, like I said, at that meeting, information on all 20 applicants. We're going to work with you on narrowing this down. You probably don't want to interview 20 people, as you go through this. What does that look like? Who's going to be a best fit? What is that information? Another important piece, you will see references, you will see reference letters. I encourage you to read those. Please do not call any references, even if you know them, even if they're your best friend, please do not call any of the references. That's what you've hired us to do. And why I say that is because if Nigel picks up the phone and calls somebody, that's a conversation he has had that the rest of you haven't had. If you want to Google search somebody or do whatever, do it all day. That's publicly accessible information. Please do not call references. If someone calls you and says, hey, Amber, my friend Sam is applying for this position. I think you should give her a shot. Hang up the phone, politely hang up the phone and say, I'm sorry, we should not be having this conversation because the 5 of you need to be hearing the same information at the same time. And that to be said, if somebody, let's say an applicant calls you and says, I'm having issues with the application, can you help me? No, sorry, send them to us. And that's the same for your central office staff. Send them to us, that's what you hired us to do, that's what we're here to do. We can have those conversations with them without it influencing the process or your thoughts of the person. Um, Also, if a community member has issues with the survey, we're happy to help them with that as well. So don't feel as though that's something you all have to take on. If a community member has a technical issue, not like a content issue, but a technical issue, I can't do it, or I have five kids in my house, they want to fill it out. Let's find a way around that. Let us be those problem solvers. You don't have to do that. So, but that's another piece so especially your central office. Any questions that come to central office, just send those to us, please. Sometimes, and it's been a while since you guys have done a superintendent search, and I can't recall if we had the software or not. I know we didn't have this, but we had another software. Applicants used to have to mail packets into central office, and then school board members would have to go and check out the packets and review them. Some people, yeah, I'm sure you remember applying for superintendencies like that. Some applicants remember that, and some applicants will still mail a packet to central office. We say, I'm sorry, like that will not be considered, it has to be put into the system. If you have a reason why you can't put it into the system, let us work that with you. If you're just blanketly sending your packet to whomever has an open, you're not fulfilling the qualifications, because to be considered for the position, you have to apply within the system. And that just helps keep confidentiality. It helps keep, so you all are reviewing the same. If I'm reading 4 hard packets here, 7 people have replied with Revelis, and 5 people have called me, that's not professional. You don't want to do that.
And which number are we giving people to call if they have technical problems?
Either one, they're both the same number,
Okay.
yeah. I guess toll free doesn't, I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, but we still have an 800 number, so
Okay.
somebody wants to call it 800, it's the same phone number, it goes to the same spot, so absolutely. And let me pause for a second and talk about confidentiality. So confidentiality throughout this entire process is paramount. I have seen it happen that board members, community can derail a search because an applicant feels that their name has gotten out there that they've applied for the position. So on September 28th, you guys are going to see who's applied. You might see my name in there, and you're not going to see that. But you'll say you see my name, you see me at the grocery store and say, oh, I saw that you applied. You don't know who is hearing that. You don't know who is around the corner. Keep those conversations amongst yourselves. Again, we live in a small town, you guys. Everybody knows everybody. Please do not share. You might want to talk through stuff with your significant other, with your friend, with whatever. Please do not. It's the 5 of you that are going through this process, because if a well-qualified applicant thinks that the name's going to get out, they're not going to apply. Why would I give up a great seat somewhere else to take a shot at Waynesboro if maybe I'm not even going to be here, or if I think my name's going to get out the second I apply? I'm probably not going to do that, and that's limiting you from a strong applicant to applying for the position. So really making sure confidentiality is the utmost importance for all of you. You can talk amongst yourselves, obviously, but have those conversations with no one else than the 5 of you. Again, small town, smile and nod, I've even seen it like, no, it'll be close. I've seen, even at our conferences, people will come up and be like, oh, hey, is that Sam who applied for our position? Please don't say that out loud. Please don't, because you don't know if they have told, who they told. Now, I will say on the application, it does ask the applicants, can we talk to your current employer? And if they say no, we do not call their current employer. We find other people who probably know about them, but we respect their wishes to not call their current employer, because who knows? Who knows why they wouldn't want us to do that? But just be aware that that is a question, and we take that into mind, and we hope that you all do as well.
Going quickly back to Revelist logins,
Oh, yes.
I'm going to send you probably about a week before the deadline, and information on how to get logged in. It's going to go to your school board email address, so no other email address. So everything that we send to you will be going directly to your school board email address, so make sure that you're checking that. But I do ask that when you get that information from me to go ahead and try logging in. You're not gonna be able to view any applications until the 28th at 9 a.m. when the dashboard opens. But just so that like you guys have enough time, if you have technical difficulties or if you have, like I said, issues logging in, you can let me know. And then that way you're ready to rock and roll on the 28th, to do your applications.
Thank you.
Okay. So I was actually just texting Gina because that second meeting, she will be here in attendance as well, and that's when we're gonna go through all of those applicants with you. So, what we'll need to do is find it, you all are available as well as we are available to go over that. That will be done in closed session, so you'll open and open. You'll make a motion, there's sample motions, Teresa, in the in the book as well. How page, page, page 68, you might want to flag. And we recommend at least 2 hours for this meeting. It is a closed session, and if possible, we typically do it during daylight hours if that's possible, rather than, so.
If we do the 13th, we send in another 2 hours, and then we can have like a dinner or something brought to the office before our scheduled meeting. And since we already have that day blocked out for public.
Right, I guess if they have
For
to
me,
be,
it's harder to block you're meeting 2 hours and then dinner,
Yeah.
I can do it, but I think our code is 5 or 6 hours,
Yeah.
a lot. So, and then we're splitting, so we can just do diverse,
it's
two
on
meetings,
that.
different days of it, they're in mind.
And also, if I have it on the date correctly, we had Academy that one, so that would.
Oh, on the 13th.
Yeah. That would take a lot.
I mean, the 12th, I believe, is a work day, isn't it? Yes.
Our office is closed.
I assume it would be. Because I feel like we probably need that whole, the 5th through, unless you wanted like the 8th or 9th, but I feel like that whole week for us to really look into it, because I feel like when we did the 12th, it was the best.
That is preferred, because that also gives us time to do our reference checks, because a lot of times, and we'll be doing, just so you all know, we'll be doing checks as they come in, kind of checking, making sure 80% of the applications come in on the deadline day. And that's
What about
okay.
the 15th?
So,
That works for me.
15th? After 11. And you said during the day, best
Mhm.
suits?
like a time like this would be fine, like
So like
whatever time we started.
2:30, 2:30 on the 15th?
I
Can we
think
do
until
look at-
after 3.
Yeah, we look at 4.
Yeah.
Can we look at what?
Unless we
Or
did earlier,
every
could we do earlier?
Well,
You said 2 hours, so like 12.
I need to be
So
done
what-
by
what-
2:30.
What's wrong with, what's wrong with 4?
Because we're trying to save 3 hours.
Well, I think he's trying to keep it there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thinking about his job and stuff like that. He doesn't have things that he doesn't, so I'm prepared for that.
I mean, 4 still puts us within
I'll just
business
double
hours.
check. I know I live here, so it's easy. I'll check with you.
Yeah.
So why don't we have let's do a tentative, and then we'll confirm that, as we get closer. So what
So
was,
15th at 4.
and this was October 15th?
Yes.
Well, we can say 3.
3?
3:15.
Oh, that's right, sorry, my apologies.
Or 3:30 helps.
3:30.
too.
Does that help?
Okay, 3:30 to 15.
3:30? Okay. I will make myself.
And we'll confirm, so let's pencil that in, and then we'll confirm that, as, as we continue on.
So the 13th, the 15th.
Yes.
October 15th at 3:30. And that would be closed, you'd open, go into close. So when you bring your computers, we do a lot of work on narrowing down let me show you a few things that we will talk about at that meeting, that are in the book, just in case you want to read ahead and start looking through, some information. So there are, some interview assessments in here. And so these are just samples. You do not have to use these, but just something to help guide you as you go through the interview. There are also sample interview questions. Again, you do not have to use any of those, but they are samples there. A lot of times I will recommend that a board look at your position announcement that you use and craft your interview questions based around that. What did you say you wanted to see? And then let's see if that person is who they say they are. But you'll see a lot of information about that. Teresa, for you, there's a 15-day window notification on page 57 that will have to be announced. And that is important because you are protected when you're interviewing, so you do not have to say, we're gonna be interviewing on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Just to help, again, to help protect confidentiality, you can say, or you will say, we have a 15-day window that we're conducting interviews. It starts, it begins this day, it ends this day. Well, it has to begin the day after that you make the statement, but it's open for 15 days, and then you all can meet, with your candidates at that point. So,
Anytime within that 15 days.
anytime within that 15 days. And if you need to extend your 15-day window, you can. You just have to make another announcement to open another 15 days. And we'll talk through that with you. We know a little more once we know how many candidates you're interviewing. If you're interviewing 5, if you're interviewing 10, it's a little different. So because you'll need more days to interview. So let's also take a look, if everybody can, for the month of October and the month of November, any cannot do, so the month of October after we meet with you, and November, any cannot do dates. Because you guys are gonna need to interview, and you're gonna need to interview rather quickly if you wanna have somebody named at the December, if that's historical. Yes.
Oh, the conference is already always the Thursday before
So
the.
the 18th.
Correct.
So my question is about how many interviews do we need to have? Like if we have like an initial interview with the first list,
Mhm.
and then we shortlist some people, how many are total interviews from like first interview to final selection do you recommend?
I would like how many groups of interviews, if you will.
Right.
Most boards will do 2, so they'll do a first round, and then they'll narrow it to 2 or 3, and then a second round. I have had some boards do a third round, just to really make sure that that's the candidate that they're looking for. That's really up to you. From a recommendation standpoint, your first round interview, you're gonna be comparing apples to apples. Erica's gonna ask the same question of every applicant. Diana's gonna ask the next question. You're asking the same question of everyone as you go through. Your second round interviews, you're gonna dig a little deeper. You're gonna say, hey, maybe this person's from out of state. I wanna learn about what they know about Virginia. Or this person's never been a superintendent before. Let's ask questions that are a little more specific. Or some boards decide to ask the applicants to come with a presentation for the second round. So you can see how they present to you and how do they look each of you in the eye? Do they present well? Do they have they done their research on Waynesboro? They should be coming to you, especially for those first rounds, and absolutely for the second rounds, telling you things about your school system that you probably know, but maybe you haven't heard for a little while. Or they should have been doing research on you and the school system and how you're doing your strategic plan, how your community involvement, those pieces that they can pop in to their interview questions or their interview answers. That's going to help narrow, are they applying just because it's a job, or are they applying because they want to come to Waynesboro? And that's important. And you guys need to feel that. That's another piece why it's so important that all of you are available for these pieces. You need to feel that. You need to know, can they look each one of you in the eye? Because you guys are the board that you are the people that they're working with.
So I know you guys will help guide that process.
Mhm.
And confidentiality is important.
Yes.
So whether we do 2 or 3 rounds of interviews. So I'm the type of person, like when I have people work with kids, I like to see them interact with kids. Like plenty of people that on paper look well to work with kids, but you can really work with kids, willing to walk around, how people respond.
Sure.
do we have to just do interviews here? Like, can we do some type of interactive or other piece? Is that impossible to do? If we just have, I'm glad they'll look us in the eye, but if you walk through when you don't speak to a kid, I don't know. You know what I mean?
So that's not impossible. What I will say, that's not the typical process in Virginia because the law doesn't require you to do that. There are some states that the entire applicant list has to be public. There are some states that the top 5 have to be public. And the people who are applying to those states know that, so they know that their name is going to be out there. If this is something that, what you're describing, if that's something that the 5 of you want to do, and you want to have like a public session with your applicants, or you want to have a public interview process, that needs to be stated upfront in your position announcement, because that is not a typical process in Virginia. In some states that's typical, in Virginia it's not. So,
that piece of confidentiality.
Yeah, full of building.
yeah. So I hear what you're saying, but it's up to the 5 of you all to decide if that's something you want to do, and if it is, I would make sure that it is in your position announcement, so your applicants are aware of that. Or, as you get, and it could be something as simple as for second round interviews, there may be a public opportunity, then they can opt out of that if they wanted to, and not be considered for the position. But I would make sure that that is clear and upfront in your position announcement.
Well, is there a general feel how many rounds you guys want to do, 2 or 3, or is that going to take more conversation? Because I think that would impact if that is an option. I very strongly think that's important. There's some type of interaction because I know that it's great to look us in the eye, shake our hands, but they're not going to do nothing. I don't. Kids, people are kids, people say.
I feel like 2 rounds, and if needed, more, I feel like is what I'm expecting, or I envision, when you said you're getting more in depth with that second round, and if you need to continue that conversation into a third. So maybe that's something like you said, bring the evidence of your relationships, or like you said, a presentation, you can ask for that. Or like I know sometimes we have to video ourselves as teachers. You can have a video of you and your environment, or I don't know, anything like that you could do too.
Is there another way that we, like, earlier on in this process that we could capture it? Because I think depending on what we require qualifications and then looking at the applications, if they have been in public education their entire career, I think somebody, like, maybe during the reference check might be like, they're not that great with it, or whatever.
I would be.
Like, I feel like that's gonna come up some other way, because I would hate to limit our pool because they feel like they're gonna get the Waynesboro, we're gonna put them on parade.
I'm happy to concede it every other one, like that. I think that's important, and whether it's in the process or not. I mean, I'll give an example. If Dr. Castle comes into my space that I work in or in the school, like, if he doesn't interact with kids or kids don't respond to him, that would be a flag for me, and they do, and he does, but if everybody doesn't do it the same way, that is fine. You've been a teacher, I work with kids, to me that's important. It's gonna leave kids that really interact with kids, it's gonna leave the people who are leading and affecting these kids, you have to have that ability. But if that's not a priority for us, that's fine, I can make sure that I lean into that for questions, because for me that's a priority.
Yeah, I like that, but I would be curious to know what a hybrid of that looks like, because the thing is, if we open it to where it can be an optional thing, my fear then comes that you're creating possible inconsistencies in the approach and the reception that you're getting from a candidate. But I also feel that it is important to know that how do you interact with children, or what's your plan for children? So twofold, I think maybe 3 interviews would be necessary, especially for a position like this. One, we're all looking at the same thing. Everybody looks the same at that point. Second round interviews, you're kind of starting to separate yourself and kind of give what the details are. At that point, we can say, I like this aspect of this person from the second round interview. And I love what you said about the presentation. I think that should necessarily be a requirement, because, like you said, I want to know you want to be here. What is your plan for Waynesboro? I don't want it to be a continuation of what exists. What do you see differently for Waynesboro, and what is your perception of what is and what can be? So,
Maybe that's the third round. Maybe that's the third round. So I have a compromise for my needs, my desires are,
what,
survey. That would be a tweak in the community survey, and I feel like if the community says that we should have some interaction or see some interaction, then that has a decision.
Well, I want to ask a question now. Can we take people who are not employed by the division into classrooms?
You have to do a background check.
Yeah, that'd be a question not to, that'd be a question to your HR, to your.
I would want to check with legal.
And I'm not saying specifically in the classroom, we get plenty of opportunities in community and in schools to interact with kids or interact with families, so I will figure out how to put it in the survey and we get community feedback on that, and then we can look for that when we talk about qualifications.
Sure.
That doesn't require parent permission, because even if they're in a different facility, like, we're gonna have to let parents know that, and they're gonna have to give permission, even minors, like, we can't just try to do that.
So if everybody could forward our school buildings and walk through with admin and visit require parent permission, that's one thing I think people would walk through with admin and tour the buildings and see as partners and businesses. So
Does that happen during normal? So during, when class is in session, is it normal to just have people walking through the building that aren't employed by the division?
We would typically go into classrooms, right? Like, when we move into the area and like the senior school or the school, kind of walk through the back end.
But not.
But it was not.
I'm thinking, I wasn't leaning for a classroom interaction, building for like that type of access. You're going to see a kid, you're going to see someone. Someone can come in a tie and sit and answer all of our questions and look us in the eye. I just think an interaction beyond us sometimes is helpful, but it's the
The
community
building
doesn't
work
work.
makes sense, it's just my concern with like the classroom, like once they go into the classroom, I think we have a greater responsibility, the parents and the caretakers, and I don't know if we necessarily want to take that.
No, I think.
One thing that might help some of this, you could also add a question to your application about like kid focus or tell us about your experience working with kids or or why do you enjoy working with students or something, something, and that could be a short answer that your applicants would answer, and you could kind of see how they answer that. So are they just checking some boxes and saying, yeah, kids are great, or can you feel some part, like I truly care about kids from playing different view or whatever. So that could be a short answer question that you put in your application that each of your applicants has to fill out to give you kind of a window to their view. That's also something that when we are asking our reference checks, that could be a question that we ask to the references and say, how do they interact with kids? And that would give us some feedback on those types of questions or that type of information that we'd have to be trusting what the reference is telling us, but that would help with some of maybe the legal things and maybe the confidentiality pieces of actually coming to me and walking into the classroom. So something you can gather some of that information without seeing it firsthand.
I was going to say, and I'm just laughing at you on this, if we just explore any of those options. I'm going to kind of dig my heels in as the person that at the table that interviews people who work with kids, so you can answer me about kids differently. So I leave it to her communication experience. I'm working with them on. I think it's important that we get that to hire someone that's not even going to do that with kids.
And my recommendation from this side of the table is if you are going to have a public display, I'm just going to call it that needs to be in your position announcement. So you guys need to decide that before August 27th, what you're going to do with that.
Absolutely.
yeah, or at least an approach on how. So I know that they're going to be doing references, and those will naturally be peer references too. I'm assuming you can grab.
Mm-hmm.
What are additional ways to kind of get a holistic scope of how they left their last job?
Sure. So there's actually a question on the application, like why did you leave? And you can sometimes read into that a little bit, but when we do our reference checks, I call them reference checks because that's what they are, they're reference checks. we look at their reference list, but then we call people that we know, who know them, or who know somebody else, those kind of people. I've applied for jobs. You don't put someone who's not gonna recommend you on your reference list, right? We don't wanna come to you with information that there may be a skeleton in somebody's closet or there's something going on. We're gonna do our job to uncover that information. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and guarantee that we're gonna uncover absolutely everything, right?
Right.
But we're gonna cover as much as we can to present to you when we have that meeting with you. So someone might look wonderful on paper, their references are amazing. Hey, guess what? They've been fired from 5 other jobs in 6 other states. I know that because I've called my colleagues across the country. They've had personal communication, they've had other information, those kind of pieces. So that's when we start getting, we get to work. Your work is right now, because you're doing the community comments, you're doing all of those pieces. We kind of sit back and wait for those application windows. As that application window, we're spending hours a day working on your search and making sure to uncover a lot of those pieces and not just call references who are on the list. But you'd be surprised. Sometimes people who are on the list don't give the best references either.
Right.
So, but we'll make sure to cover those pieces. And I will say, if there's something you all personally know, bring that to that meeting, that closed session meeting, we can talk about it. Not something that you called and had a conversation with, but maybe you've worked in a system or maybe you've had experience. Bring that information to
Do we specify, for references, any type of references? Is it free professional, do they?
They have the opportunity to upload as many references as they want.
Like categories, I like references from someone that is the direct supervisor.
Oh, sure.
Your peer, someone that's been the direct report type of thing. We can get into that.
You can if you'd like. The system currently, it's just set up for references, but so it's not specifically asking who what, but you guys can let us know if that's something the board would like to update, and we can add that as a requirement.
I guess that would play into like what she said, let's say that they're kind of happy with their current position, but then want to maybe try another opportunity, and they don't want to disclose that information. That might. not
Yeah,
help
but I
with
think
that.
most times people can still have a past supervisor or someone that.
Oh,
they
okay.
Yeah.
So they can, I think you said they can opt out of their current employer.
Correct.
But they can include that.
Yep.
I'm just saying all 3 levels are very important, usually a better view of the person.
And that's something you guys we can put a line in there. When you submit your references, please include the, and then that'll be in there.
I like that idea. That's 3 different people that you could be interacting with.
If you're an effective leader, someone who supervises you, someone who's supervising someone that's in a peer, you're gonna see the consistency, the inconsistency, it tells more who the person is than just my kids as friends and supervisors I like.
So when I was at UVA, opting out of your current employer was fine until you were given an offer and then they were contacted. Does it work that way for this type of search for now?
To you guys.
Okay.
Yep, totally up to you. And that can be a conversation that you have with the applicant when they're here too, because you can say, I saw, we can contact your current employer. They might explain why when they're here for the interview, and then you can say, we need to contact so and so.
In your history with helping the superintendents across the state, and we keep talking about the confidentiality piece, and then are we potentially going to see the interaction of the ones that you have done? Have they all been confidential until appointment?
Yes.
You guys also, besides references, you'll verify their employment history and education.
We do not do that. So we do not. So I know there was the controversy in Iowa, and all of the things. That is not something that we currently do with our process. What we do recommend is that when you have your finalists, you all do the same kind of background check that you would for any of your other employees. It would be run through HR and that kind of thing. So, but no, at the current time, we do not.
But I'm just getting into that if we want.
And I told this to another board, my answer in 5 years might be a completely different answer to that question, just because of current,
Well, I know some people
things.
pay naturally until, on their day to the plan and
Yeah.
stuff, but I think in the due diligence of the fee
Mhm.
like, I have some stringent hiring practices. I can hire people that have been in certain organizations. I don't
And that's a good point. So we do reference checks, not background checks. And so fingerprinting, all of those pieces, we strongly recommend that the board does that when you're down to your finalists before you make that final offer, because they typically have to sign off on some things to do a background check, and then that would be run through your HR department. So, like a criminal and credit check, those sorts of things.
So could we make any offer contingent on
Mhm.
the check with their current employer? Because that would be one way that we can verify that they are currently employed and they do
Sure.
have.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, at that point, if you're on up to the offer standpoint, the applicant should have let their current employer know at that point, right? So I think what happens is what I've seen a lot, and this is just from having conversations with people who apply for superintendencies. If they're applying and they don't think that they're going to be considered, why would I go tell my boss that I applied for a job? If I get an interview, then I might go tell them. Or if I get a second round, I'm probably going to tell them because I'm going to, if I get an offer, I don't want this to just come out of the woods. One thing I will say, we're dealing with people who are far along in their career. They've been in education typically for many years. They know how the process works. And so I think giving them some benefit of, yes, we're going to respect their decision to not ask us to call if they're just one of 20, but they're going to know that they've got to let their board know that they're looking for other positions. And most superintendent applicants aren't going to do that if they're one of 20, but they're probably going to do that if they're one of 5 or if they've been interviewed or something along those lines. So, and that's a conversation you all can have with the applicant. Hey, have you got your current board? Or they might even say, I let my board know, or whatever. So you'll get a lot of information in those interviews that we can make assumptions about based on the interview, or based on their application. You're going to get a lot of information in those interviews that they're going to offer to you, or you're going to find out through the questioning.
Is that, sorry, I was saying, is that 15-day window business days or
Calendar days.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, please, one of your to-dos before we come back, the month of October and November, make sure you guys move your windows because you really want to leave that meeting with some solid. At that point, you're going to know: are we interviewing 5? Are we interviewing 7? And I don't like to throw out a number because I don't want you to get stuck on. We can only interview 7 because that's the only number of time slots we have. Because what if number 8 was your best applicant, right? So plan on 2 hours for each interview, and so you're going to need a few days. You're going to need a few days to set aside for interviews.
So I feel like in our individual schedules, the last 2 weeks of October and the first weeks of November, kind of open if we can.
Something for us to consider from what Sam just said, kind of capture what I was gonna say. So for us to determine how many interviews, well, for me, in my process, is I'm familiar with that, in previous more maybe, but to determine how many interviews you want, we need to determine how many final candidates we want. And kind of back into the process is what I'm used to. And so I just want to remind us as we go through this that we're going to need at least top 2, if not top 3. That's a discussion, but we've had confidential personnel processes and offers and stuff that would hopefully whoever applies wants this job, but it's not beyond an employer to counter offer and keep the person, and we need to allow room and time for that. So just be mindful of that, and where we end up impacts how many start to promote that interview process and remember the interview is good.
Or it's probably a safe move.
Yeah. I think I'm just really be mindful of that. I have a thing that's
I don't want to stop the conversation, but we're making a lot of just guesses. You don't know how many people are applying, you don't know how many interviews. So don't pigeonhole yourselves too much.
Okay.
Because I don't want you to get stressed out about it now and then say, oh, okay, we're going this way or whatnot. So be aware there, and I think that's a great, think about how many you want to do and go back, but don't be stuck on that. We're going to do 3 rounds. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You might know after the first round, and then you have a second interview and you say, yeah, we got it. We're good. I had that happen to a board a couple of months ago, and they said, we knew right away and didn't have to go through or do the other steps, and that's their prerogative. you guys are the ones that'll know that, you're gonna get that feeling, and you'll have that.
For out of state candidates, the thing with this, are they use the virtual interviews in the first round too?
Typically in person. I mean, during COVID, yes, because we all pivoted to that, but typically in person unless there's truly some reason to come. So, and I will say the board will cover those expenses, or don't, or should cover those expenses. It's a CEO job, so don't let that sway you, but just be aware. Yeah. For out of state, yeah.
No other questions, I think we were, getting thrown out last 2 weeks of October and first 2 weeks of November.
Yes.
Do we wanna look at those dates now for our timeline soon, or?
I feel like we wouldn't really necessarily know unless,
just to say
until that
we don't
closed
leave it open?
session, because we don't know how many applicants we're gonna have, and we just like, don't stress yourself too much. But it's only that time window, and then we can narrow it down.
So the window is good right now?
The window is good right now. Know your cannot do dates. I would say find at least 4 dates that you're available, that you're definitely available. And I would include some weekends on it, because you can get more interviews done on the weekend than in the week. So, and I mean, let's be honest, guys. It's holiday season coming up, right? So, November is going to be some crunch time. Not impossible, obviously, but you're going to want to probably go more towards the beginning of that month than you will the end of that month.
Yeah, so maybe majority of them might be in the last 2 weeks of October, if we can. And then our next rounds could be the next 2 weeks if needed. We need to go past that 15-day window.
And then you would just another.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm sure this will be up to us too, but typically in your experience, how many interviews are being held in a day?
We typically recommend no more than 4,
Okay.
because at that point everyone just kind of looks the same
Yeah,
and sounds the same. Yes, yeah.
That's what made me ask.
Yeah,
That
no,
can
that's
be
a great
lot.
point.
It's
Yep.
6 hours straight
It's a lot.
of information.
It's a lot. Yeah,
Perfect, thank you.
absolutely.
And do you recommend us using where for the interviews?
It's one of the, I would not a school board office or not a school. So somewhere else that you all can meet confidential, that has a door, that not everybody can see.
You guys offer your office.
We could, you guys are close enough. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I guess we should probably go back to the survey.
Before we do that, can I go over the timeline really quick, just
Yeah.
to make sure we have it? All right, so we have July 30th, which is today. The community survey will not open today, it will open August 2nd. Or no, they want it open on Sunday, right? So it's
Yeah,
August
July.
2nd.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you, sorry. Okay, and then the public hearing will be August 18th at the high school at 6 o'clock. Pending, should be available. The deadline for surveys will be August 21st. The board will meet to establish qualifications August 27th at 6 o'clock. I think we also sent the high school for that too. The established qualifications will come to the SBA on August 28th. You'll receive applications August 31st through September 27th. We'll meet with you, and this is still tentative, October 15th at 3:30, and that'll be closed session. And then we can still leave October, November for interviews with candidates, and on or before December, your announcement of person select. Does that sound good for everybody?
Just for clarity, the 15th is their also.
Yeah, wherever you typically do your closed session meetings.
Yeah, that'll be here.
Okay.
And that's the second meeting.
You'll open and then close, and then given your timeline, you might open and announce a 15-day window, but so that we could just be prepared for that. But we'll know more about that after that.
Thank you.
Okay, now you can go ahead. I just didn't want to leave without
No,
confirming
that
that.
makes sense. I guess I would ask them for us to just walk through it together and just see, is this touching kind of what we want? Is there other things or topics we want to touch on?
I guess my question would be, as is, how many divisions have used your survey as is? Or do you think it's mostly as is and then,
It's the strong majority as is. A few will add one or two questions. Um, a couple have added short answer questions, but let's say I've done 50 searches, maybe 5 have changed the survey. That doesn't mean you can or can't. I'm just saying that's what's been done in the past. So, and a couple of the changes that boards have made, we've actually stuck and we've kept it for other searches too. So, adding some options and things like that. So.
So I had a question actually about the flow that might help with, having multiple people in the household. If somebody's indicating that they're, a parent or a caretaker, could they also indicate the number of students they have in the household, and that would allow them to complete more than one survey through
I
the single
don't,
one? Is that a possibility?
I don't think survey
Okay.
might be a setup for that.
Okay.
Mhm.
I guess we'll just have to figure out. Well, I suppose, actually, could they also, and I don't know, maybe this is in the pro plan, couldn't they also send an invitation?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
okay.
I would say there's ways that we
So
can make it
maybe we can
available.
add that option, so like, if you as a parent, you're sending invitations to each of your children to include it. And that way
I think we would have
You
to
would
send
have to
it, yeah.
Okay,
And then there's also some settings that we can adjust. So if they say, hey, we want to fill this out in the next 30 minutes, we can adjust the settings, they can fill it out, and then we can close the settings.
and we also randomize the order of some of these, like, just the order of the responses, so it doesn't look like there's a pile.
Maybe 10 or more. Yeah. No, I mean, there's that little sticker on every person's survey. So then it's not always the top 3 that are
Yeah, it's
shared.
not always at the
Just
top.
not for the printed.
Yeah, not for the printed, obviously.
Oh.
PDF, yeah.
Clearly, but yeah, for the online one.
Yes, we should, I believe that, I'm 90% sure that's an option. Yeah.
and Dr. Matthew mentioned that most, if not all students have social media that could be used when you push on the
Yeah.
So that was kind of a given, question 1. Let's give them the community the opportunity to say what they would like. And we decided that we would then base our description or
Based off.
open it to what the feedback was, whether that we required or not.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Okay. Leadership management skills.
That seems pretty self-explanatory.
But, I just want to read it again. But I was thinking of like open to the same with peer feedback, like asking, making sure that our candidate, and I guess that's more of an interview question, now that I'm thinking about it.
I thought the goal was that we were gonna take time to review the survey and send them our individual edits and
Yeah.
recommendations.
You're gonna send
So
them
we're
an
sending
email.
it to Amber.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't nothing collectively that we didn't want to add or wanted to add.
I feel like I went through this and I feel like I'm trusting your professionalism and how many you have done, and you said you've modified this based on your surveys with other divisions. I feel like it's pretty comprehensive for what we're asking, because if we ask too many questions, is it going to become overwhelming?
Well, I guess for me, I ask questions, not apologizing for it.
No one's asked
Definitely.
you to.
I definitely ask questions, but for instance, like when I'm looking at number 5, and this is a community survey, board superintendent relationship. What, then would a community member, why would they care about that? That's not
Or
something
everybody
necessary.
defines that.
Right, so looking at that question, saying, okay, well, how does that relate to a community member? What would they, me as Nigel, a community person, how do I want my superintendent or the superintendent of my child to have a relationship with the board? Because we are a separate entity that is in charge of the superintendent and oversees the division as a whole.
It's assuming people understand government versus management.
Right.
That,
And then making sure too that they're not, having the assumption that there's wands that we can wave or just tell someone what to do at a division level.
Sure.
That there's the understanding of the separation of duties and entities, and that they're right.
Yeah.
So like questions like that, like I want to know how that question is going to land or the intent of it landing before it's sent out. And if it's your survey, I would then want that answered in a group setting.
so the survey can be an opportunity for community education as well. So can you link some things for those types of things? That's a good example for board and superintendent relations, what the community wants to see. Can you link something so the community can understand how the code guides that and the restrictions of the board as a governing body, so they don't assume like, I don't want to say that's the main priority because I think as a school board member, Deborah should be walking into the office every day telling Dr. Castle what his priorities are for work. It's an opportunity for education as well.
I think if you make the survey too much stuff, then people aren't gonna do it. I mean, they're gonna say, man, that's a lot. I'm not gonna.
Well, and I think that's what we have to then find the balance between what's overstimulating but what's still factually relevant.
I mean, I think education is helpful, but I can't tell you how many times I've been like, we don't run school. Well, hey, our function is different than the superintendent's function. We do not run the school. So we can say that, I don't know how many times I've said it at this point. It's gonna resonate or it's not. So I think if we can do some things that will help educate, but I don't think there's necessarily a school for it.
And that could be
Maybe.
the website.
That
Like
could be
an
the website.
infographic.
That could be the website.
An infographic on the website explaining the duties, especially if the link is going to be up there for the survey. They could then see first what the duties and responsibilities are, have that in their mind before they go into the survey, assuming that most people visit the website. And I don't know, maybe that's a DSBA question, like, is there a way we can push people to a website if we wanted to go that? Well, I don't know if we get a free website that way.
I also feel like that question also might be for the person that maybe wants to come into this role in the future, and that would help answer some of their questions on what kind of superintendent would they want to work with.
Right, I mean,
I think that's how I view that question.
but that's looking at it from a speculation standpoint of we're assuming someone wants to run for office, which isn't the larger scope of our community. So I still feel like that's an infographic type of point on the website, not.
Well, just like this is the code, where the code speaks on superintendent qualifications, all of that's an opportunity. Diana's gonna have that communication on a page anyway, so I don't think there's anybody that is.
Can you say that? Are you saying you don't like that question is relevant to the survey? Is that what you're trying to infer?
Well, I
I'm
guess
trying to understand that.
what I'm looking for is, one, what is the intent of the question? For one, I think that's the biggest question.
Sure. So how I read this, and again, I'm not married to this, to be honest. This is a sample. It's based on the purpose. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The purpose of the survey is to help frame what you'd like to list in your superintendent.
Mhm.
You all, yes, you guys are going to know what kind of leader you want as a board. You understand your roles. You understand more than the general community does what a board does, what a superintendent does. This can help inform that, or this could say, the community thinks that, whatever, I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling for or against, but I will say I don't know that I would put an hour's worth of conversation on a question that you may or may not use the information for your before you want
Exactly,
to announce that.
which is why I
So,
asked,
yeah.
because it might be beneficial just to take it off.
That's what I was
Okay,
wondering.
I was very concerned with the whole section.
So just, you're like, hey, take off what
Just
you're
a question in general, yeah.
Alright.
And so, but with that to be said, you all know that part of the superintendent's role is to work with the board.
Correct.
So you need something in here that talks about how you all expect the board, the superintendent, to work with you as a board. Because if I'm a superintendent and there's nothing in here about superintendent, about working with the board, I'm gonna say, oh, you're just gonna let me run the whole thing, I don't have to report to the board at all? Well, we know that's not how that works, either. So I think there's some pieces that just, and it can be framed in your interview questions, but I don't want, I've talked with enough superintendent or aspiring superintendents who are wonderful leaders when it comes to academics and instruction. And then when they get into the superintendency, it's a different world because you're working with the board, you're working with the community, you're working with different groups. You need to find someone who can work with all those groups. So I don't know if my recommendation would be to take board relationships out of anything because that's a huge part of the job. Does it need to be in a community survey? That's up to you all. Should it be in your position announcement? It would be hard to not have something about the board in a position announcement when the board's the one doing the hiring.
So
So-
for consistency reasons, then I would say we should, because then you're saying the same thing here, you're saying the same thing here, and there's no added or misinformation.
That's a good one.
Okay.
And if you don't
Just
just the
the-
wording of something.
Absolutely.
I think some of the wording is bothering me once I read through it. that
Yeah, it is.
Recommended that
There you
different,
go, send that,
Yeah.
okay.
I see your concerns, but they're important. They
No, I
need to be
agree.
framed.
Yeah.
Look at our norms and look at our procedures.
Yeah.
And policies, and then line that with language to that.
Right.
And Bella's checking out. She is able to randomize the question answers within Survey Monkey, so that's not a problem at all.
Anything else that you all would like to bring forward?
I have one more thing for you guys to look at in the book that I just haven't gotten to yet. So starting on page 72 is a sample contract. Again, I mentioned at the beginning, have your current superintendent's contract available, have their job description available. This is a sample contract. This is a board-friendly contract. You don't have to use this, but take a look when you get to that negotiation piece, which is further down the road. I realize that, but it's in here. You're welcome to take a look at it. Again, not something you have to do, but anything that's highlighted, that's underlined or bolded, take a strong look at and compare that to any contract that you're receiving from an applicant. And we'll talk about that too. One thing that I haven't necessarily mentioned, but I think is important, you all are the ones that have the contact with the applicants. We will work with them as they're applying for the position, right? Helping them through it. But when you decide who you're interviewing, usually the board chair or whomever is the one that's making those phone calls. We are not in the interviews. We're not setting up those interviews for you. They don't need to make a relationship with us. They need to make a relationship with you. And so you all have ownership of that process. You guys are the ones calling, setting up the schedules and doing those pieces. So like I said, we're here to coach you through it. We're not here to do it for you. We're here to coach you through the process, provide you the resources that you need. But ultimately, this is your own search. And so you can answer any questions that you have, help provide information. But you guys are going to be the example that that people will see, applicants will see. And that's another piece. I don't know that I necessarily need to say this, but I'm going to say it because I say it in a lot of searches. Your applicants are going to be interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. So just be aware of that. They're going to watch your school board meetings. They're going to pay attention to conversations. They're going to pay attention to what's going on. The good ones will. Then the strong applicants will. Who really want to come here? They're going to decide, do I want to come to Waynesboro? Do I want to pick up my family and move them to Waynesboro? And they're the ones that they're gonna know that, so they're gonna get that feel for you, and you're gonna get that feel for them at the same time. It's a lot. There's so much happening at once. it's a lot, it's exciting, it's scary, it's probably every emotion you can probably go through in the next 4 months. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get to know each other a lot throughout this process if you don't already. But I think you're gonna come out of it doing one of the most important things the board does. And we're grateful to be on this journey.
One more question. Or actually, if you would tell me where to find it. I know there was a page in here that said that there were certain things, like the residency requirement that's in the contract that also has to be in the announcement. Which page is that?
Is it the required preferred page maybe?
I can't remember. I just remember it was in there and I want to make sure I don't hear it.
We usually talk. Yeah, that's not ringing a bell to me.
Would that be part of what we do for our established qualifications? Like, is that where we
Residency
would put it?
requirements, 36.
Thank you.
Well, that's a, well, that was somebody else's letter.
Yeah, that's just what his.
Oh, is this on the announcement, page 29? Yeah, that's the one I'm looking for.
What page is
It's 29.
Oh, the announcement 6 yes, yes. And this should also talk about, yeah, if it's preferred or required, now that's a great point. I don't think we talked about this, but it's a great reiteration. If you're going to say something is required, then that's a requirement, that's not an option, right? If it's preferred, it gives you a little more options. So thinking about that as you're doing your position announcement, how narrow do you want your field to be? I have some boards that say, I want a narrow field, so I'm gonna require this, this, and this. That's your prerogative. It's up to you all to do. But just be aware, as you require things, that narrows your field even more. So just be aware of that. You may want to do that. You might not want to do that. The required, pay attention to those. Yep,
So
absolutely.
related to consistency, I just wanted to make sure that I closed the circle on the question I had earlier about the survey and adding a section that's targeting cultural acceptance and things like that. If we were to make that an open-ended question, I'd say 11, if that was one of their key priorities. How do we offer the space for them to go into detail about more about what that priority is, if that makes sense? Because if it's going to be in the survey, then it also has to be, from my understanding of the announcement, and the jump.
Nothing has to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess if we're
Yeah.
going for consistency, then
Yeah.
how do we fit that into the survey as a question, but then also the job description?
Can you explain your questions, the answer you're trying to get?
Right.
Or not the answer, but the information.
The topic. So I want to, like I said, I want to make sure that we have a superintendent that one understands the division that they're applying for, and understanding and how to meet the needs of those individuals in the community, because we're not a monolithic group. So I want to make sure that when we are looking at someone, they understand what's here in front of them, and that we set the expectation on how we expect you to behave in a culturally diverse division. So wanting to make sure that that is how we form that in the question, but how do we also make sure that it's on the description?
Well, and also, I was gonna say, is that an application question? Is that something?
Everywhere question, because we're missing demographics and the, announcement and information about the division, and I think we have opportunities to make sure that put in a few different places. In our normal interview process, or there's something that we do that has cultural competency assessment reports anyway, so I think it needs to, there's not, this isn't a one place area, this is a multiple places area, because that is important for the division.
And you could add cultural competency, so if that's, you could add that as one of the skills that people could choose in the bullets. That could be how it shows up on the survey.
Like on the,
Community relation, I mean, there's a lot of different, let's see. Maybe community
I
relations.
feel like you have like the staff, that's the staff relations.
Yeah.
Because like when I think about community relations, I'm thinking like how do you network with local organizations to build partnerships with the school?
Sure.
I'm not thinking of diversity when I'm looking at community relationships.
Personal characteristics. I mean, you could argue that that's a personal characteristic too. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it could fit in a
So
lot of
that's why I was
different
wondering
places.
if it could
Yeah.
be its own question. To, I mean, I would prefer for it to be its own question.
How would you, yeah.
Yeah, and I can add that too. I just wanted to make sure that was also.
But I would also say if that's something that the full board is passionate about, or you want to see that, you want to hear that from your applicants, you could always ask that as an interview question, but you could also ask that as a um, application question on the application, then you're gonna see everyone's answer. And I wouldn't ask for 100, 1,000-word essay on it, but you could summarize in 100 words or less.
I made it for application question, like one thing I would like to know, if we ask, I think the division of class, where students are coming from, we can ask the member at the division they're coming from as well, like I've noted that's something I would.
Yeah. Usually we'll bring that to you because we've done our research, but if we add it in the interview or add it in the application, then we don't have to do any research, so that might not be a bad idea anyway. So usually when we come back to you, we know Waynesboro. We're gonna come with what you're looking for and how to ask those questions too. So, but we build a lot of our reference checks on what you've explained your position on. So it's all a cohesive process. It feels. I mean, you guys can see it. Everything builds on each other. So.
When it comes to the survey, so how are we getting that out there? Are we asking principals? Have we thought about who's gonna take that one?
Diana can develop the communication plan, how all that's going on.
So someday somebody's gonna sit at the table. How are we gonna get it out to Bash?
I guess we can, okay, and then when we get the QR code,
The
we'll
link
print
is
it.
available now to make a QR code, so all of it will make it.
Just don't share it yet because there's no updates to it. We don't have any.
Diana shall do that.
And then we can
Yep.
have some office print off some paper copies. to have.
I have something I think that we may not apply just for the future. So we're talking about confidentiality, interviewing in Charlottesville. So we probably just need to thinking as we move through the process for internal candidates. Assuming we will have internal candidates that if we're trying to keep confidentiality and we're doing certain dates that name up here, or at least name some type of way, people not to take all time to come in and get their internal candidates, and that might break some confidentiality. I don't have a solution for that. I'm just saying we need to probably think about that in the process as well.
You have a 15-day window, and I think that's the important piece, that it's just you. You guys are the ones calling to get your interview set up. You're going to have an off-site location. You have 15 days, right? So if somebody, I mean, if someone's going to be that worried about somebody taking an afternoon off or whatever, yeah. So it can also be, so there's something to think about. And I know you guys asked if you could use our office. You absolutely can. I would try to find someone. You want people coming in. You don't want people to learn about Charlottesville. You want people to learn about Waynesboro. And we're different, you guys. I mean, I live here, we're different, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. So if you need our space, yes, right? Like, they need to feel Waynesboro. If you need it, you can have, if you need it, it's yours to be there. But I think anywhere they can be, is a little better. And I'm sure you know some business leaders will help you use a room. What other questions do you have?
How do you prefer us to reach out or communicate questions to you? Like, would you prefer that we CC each other on communication?
Well, that's up to you. Usually if you guys ask us a question, we're gonna send it out to everybody, so you can decide who you wanna include in that. But we'll send it, unless it's just I forgot my password, I'll let everybody know that you forgot your password. But if you ask us a question, then we'll just send our answer to everybody. So,
I'm fine with that, or like you said, if you're saying that she's gonna send out anyways, just CC's all.
And from our standpoint, I would ask you to include myself, Bella, and Gina on the communication, just so we're all over the place at once, so that way one of us will get an answer to you sooner rather than later. Absolutely.
And Amber will send all of the edits for the survey tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll get that to you finalized probably one o'clock tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is random thoughts. Through this process, we consider that we know why we have to do this, that we have to do it, and sometimes the community has questions for why we do things the way we do. So we probably need to make whether it's on the page that's developed or not, a way that if community members just want to say, why are you doing it that way, that they have an opportunity to ask. Like, I just thinking, I know why Diana asked you that. It's the way you prefer communication. The community doesn't know that we have norms that we have to follow and certain specific procedures that we have to follow, that the chair is the one that's going to contact. So I knew why she asked the question. I don't, but in general, people don't know why. And it would look like Diana's just asking Amber what she wants to do, so they understand we're following what's required of us. So I just, since this process is going to be requiring us to follow our norms and all of our things, any way that we have to abide by, since we're not allowed to create liability for the system, we need to make sure the community understands it.
And hopefully that can be part of the infographic on the website.
Just count it up for you.
You don't have a job or anything, do you, Diana?
So we said communication and information and being more intentional, even before we're outside this process is a priority for us as a division. So this is a great first jump at the time.
Thank
And
you.
but also, just, I mean, I don't want to talk about
Anything else? I think we got a good plan set in place, I appreciate that. And,
Will you be providing us with an updated timeline? Because I'd like to, okay.
You probably already have it.
You-
No, not yet, okay. That was so quick,
Yeah,
so,
whenever you
yes.
get it, I will use that as the starting point
Yep.
for the comp plan, and then I'll send that to everyone.
thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. With that, do I have a motion for an adjournment?
I moved that we adjourn.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate your time.
Yep.